Good afternoon or evening, interwebs. Matt Carter, another Carter's Commentaries. I got a little graphic I'm going to run with today. As a result, I was having a conversation where I've used this before, but I was having a conversation this week regarding kind of how special first responders are. And really, we're all special in our own right. So it isn't exclusive to first responders, although regular viewers know that's where my heart is and will always be. So the verse I'm going to reference is in Luke 12. It's also in Matthew, but I'm giving it to Luke 12:7, and it's where Jesus acknowledges that the good Lord knows about us. Indeed, the very hairs of your heads are all numbered. Don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. And just kind of this notion of ordainment, that you're God blessed. You're given skills, talents. I mean, that would have been a verse I could have used in utilizing your gifts that you're given. And that's for us to figure out a bit. And but I wanted to use this a graphic because I think it'll help to hopefully it'll help to illustrate and not just me saying it. So wanted to give you this graphic, and it's something you've probably seen before. It's what we call a bell curve. So if you look at a standard, you've probably heard about curves, but look at standard. I like the blue. Blue is my favorite color, so that's what I went with. So I'm going to generalize a little bit beyond this graphic, but there's a midline and it splits everything in half. So we would say that there's your midline, your median, and things to either side are just a little bit above or a little bit below average. But if we go 2 standard deviations away, and that's where these red lines are, I'm going graphically at you guys like you see it. So you've got these 2 red lines, and that's 2 standard deviations away. That covers about 95% of whatever it is you're measuring. And I'm just going to use people in a general sense. I don't know what your gift or your talent is, but when you start getting into that area of specialty, you have the ends, and we call those outliers. And the outliers comprise kind of in the ballpark of a little over 2.5% on each side, and that's if we're going with a standard deviation. And I'm going to use this as a function. So we have this outlying area. And if I used first responders, you think of how awesome it is what first responders do. You know, the type of work, the uniqueness, the exposure that you get to really crazy, unusual stuff. And God knows this about you. He knows that you're special, and He knows that you're doing amazing things. And even though sometimes media, especially for my police brother and sisters, we've taken some negative press, but that's because we're the tip of the spear. Let's be honest. We know there's tons of good police work out there happening, but these outliers, you're doing amazing things. You're doing things that the general public won't do. In fact, they call us to do things for them because they don't have the capacity to do it. And that's part of what makes you so special. And amplifying that, figuring out what it is that makes you special, humbly, but with the recognition that this is God ordained, that this is purposeful, and using those skills and gifts as God has bestowed upon you. Now, the flip to that, especially when we go trauma and exposure and the dangers with the day-to-day stress in a toxic work environment, first responders are outliers in this negative way, but we all have negative qualities that would be worse than the great majority of folks that, again, rest within these 2 standard deviations. And so what is that? And what I wanted Brendan to try to capture this week, and I do this with folks that are in first responders, because that's generally where I'm teaching, is that we want to amplify these good things, recognize that we're special, recognize that we're doing good things, and celebrate that, because that is part of what our mission from God is. But we can't ignore over here these negative components. And I don't want you to forget that you and me, all of us, have work that we've got to put in to mitigate the negative impact that these have here. And part of why I chose to go this today was because I had a wonderful conversation with my niece and her fiance about leaving the business, being retired all of 1 week now, and how this, what kind of relief, and I said, well, the great thing I think for me is I started experiencing, um, I won't say unmanageable, it became unmanageable for a bit, but anxiety, stress, and PTSD symptoms in 2010 that forced me to adjust. Like all of that was brewing out here on this negative end of the spectrum for me as a result, and I was forced to start to deal with it. So I have strategies that really have helped mitigate some of that stress over the last 12, 13 years. That doesn't mean I'm stress immune, but I also have management strategies to help put these elements in perspective. It isn't always easy, and then amplify these positive components. And I just want to reaffirm that this isn't just a psychological piece. I think there's some good grounding on the spiritual level too, which I think is an incredibly important interconnected element with our psychological piece. Is that spiritual? Is that you have these outlying characteristics that God has blessed you with, and you probably don't always like to celebrate them, but you also have these negatives, and we aren't always so good at focusing on improving or mitigating or correcting those. So I want to empower everyone, maybe these coming weeks. Remind yourself how awesome you are, because you are. You're God built. You're loved, and part of loving you is you got to look at what can I do to improve so that I don't create harm unnecessarily to myself or those that I love and care about. They're on opposite ends of the spectrum, and they probably require a little bit of a balancing act if you want to use that visual. So I want to encourage you to be reminded that you're loved, you're cared for, God loves you, He made you, He wants you to do good things, and that you have a role in making that happen. Be good, be well, stay safe, love yourselves, love each other, and take care.